92.1 WROI, WROIFM.com. We are streaming audio live, RTC Channel 5. And we are streaming audio and video live, RTC Channel 4. Right, Scott?
We're on your website.
Ah, excellent.
WROIFM.com.
We have an excellent webmaster for that website, by the way.
We're on the internet?
Well, I tell you, we're all over the place right now. Anyway, on this Wednesday morning, we're pleased to welcome to the studio Indiana 2nd District Congressperson Jackie Walorski. Good morning.
Good morning. Boy, I didn't know what I walked into here this morning.
Thank you very much.
First of all, I had to check and make sure Barron was actually having a Merry Christmas and he wasn't going to be a Scrooge this year.
He is.
And then I walked in and this thing is like streaming video, so it's a good thing I've got hairspray in my hair today.
Nice to have you
totally
with us.
Different. It's good to see you guys. I'm glad to be here.
Thanks for joining us.
This is great.
2016, Jackie Walorski in Congress. What all happened?
You know, a lot happened.
Not much.
Yeah, it's just one of those years. No, I spent a lot of time, and obviously we've been talking about this a lot before the election, but, issues in this district that have just really resonated and folks have been worried about is the national security of this country. And obviously I've served on the Armed Services Committee, the regulations that have crippled the ability of employers to hire, and fighting to repeal those regs. And taking care of our veterans has always been a big issue to me, and fighting for our veterans. So 2016 was a packed year, but I'm here today to tell you that I believe our future is bright. I went back to session right after the election, and the excitement in D.C. is palpable. You can really feel it. It's an electric environment right now, and people are excited about hitting a reset button in this country on the very things I just talked about, because they're important to this district. So the things that are important, from South Bend to Wabash and Rochester and Pulaski County and this district are the things that resonate around all of America, and we saw it in the election. So, January 3rd, we're sworn in, and I'm grateful, and I'm very, very humbled and grateful to be the 2nd District representative. I take it very seriously when I raise my right hand, and we're going right into session after that and starting this repeal process.
Congratulations on your victory, if I haven't mentioned that
thanks.
before.
No, I'm grateful.
No, great. It'll be term number 3.
Scary how fast time flies.
It does.
My gosh.
It does. But you've learned so much in the first 4 years, right?
Oh, it's a forever learning thing.
I'll bet.
I never, and I've been very clear with the folks in the district, I do not profess to be an expert in somebody's field. What I do profess to do, and what I do and am grateful to have the chance to do, is to fight for our fellow Hoosiers.
You mentioned, you said on the Armed Services Committee, one of the more exciting moments I've had since the election is to see my president-elect actually talk about this advanced fighter plane that I'm spending a lot of money on. Mm-hmm. Things like that, Air Force One, but things like that in the years past, we're all old enough to remember the aircraft carriers and the submarines that John McCain said, for example. Mm-hmm. We got to get a handle on some of this stuff. I want new fighter planes, but
I think this president-elect has been very clear that he absolutely wants to do a reset in the military. He wants to fully fund the military. By the same token, really look at where these expenses are, where he thinks there's excess. I think the choices that he's making to help him make those decisions, like General Mattis, are right on, spot on, exactly what this country needs right now. Brings in a lot of credibility, a lot of respect, but somebody from the field like General Mattis to know where is the excess and where are we going and what is this footprint going to look like, what's it going to cost, and how do we get on top of some of the priorities militarily, which obviously the first one is destroying ISIS.
What do you think, and we'll get back to that in a second, but what do you think this is all going to mean for the veterans?
I think we're going to see the biggest reset when it comes to taking care of veterans in our country. I've said this before, and we talk a lot about it when we talk here at WROI. But, the state of Indiana, we have 500,000 veterans. We have 6.2 million people in this state. We are over the top military. We are patriots. We believe in fighting for freedom, and we're often the first called upon, the first to go. And I think, one of the things I found out serving on the VA committee is how tangibly I've had to be involved in fighting for the lives of the very lives of our veterans that oftentimes fall through the crack because the VA is not in tune to literally working for the veteran, and it's been blurred over several decades. So we've taken a couple of strong steps forward, but I think that President-elect Trump has talked about his desire to really come in and have the government keep their promises and redo the way veterans receive their care just a whole different paradigm.
What are your campaign commercials related to that, as a matter of fact?
Yeah, I mean, I fight for veterans every day, and I never thought in my wildest dreams that there would be one day where I literally had to call the VA secretary myself and ask him to intervene in the life of a veteran, a young veteran, and his wife. And he'd been misdiagnosed and he was dying. And the VA secretary himself had to correct that, and he did. And I'm grateful for that because they told the story on that commercial. Yeah. But it shouldn't take. It should not take an act of Congress to get care that they were deserved and that was promised to them.
Will they address any of the pensions in the VA?
I think they're going to address the VA from top to bottom. I think it's going to start, though, immediately with health care. There is an immediate need. Veterans do die, and some of this is literally at the hands of a negligent VA that's become a bureaucracy run amok. Some of it is the access to these opioids where suicide continues to climb, but it's all unexcusable, and it all needs to be redone, and we have to do better. And I think the first part of that, I think you'll see, will be with health care.
Veterans Mobility Safety Act.
Yeah, that was kind of an interesting concept. We talk a lot about the fact that a lot of the issues and bills that I carry come right out of this district, and they come out of constituents' complaints. And we had a couple of different cases where veterans in different parts of this district, but from this district, they had applied to the VA. They received the $12,000 to $13,000 to have their vehicle adapted, so they actually had a better quality of life. They could get around. And what happens is, and this is just well-meaning folks, but a neighbor, they'll pay a neighbor or they'll pay some guy down the street who may not actually understand what it means to adapt one of those vehicles. And in one case, they'd gone to somebody who really didn't know what they were doing with this adaptive technology, and the brakes went out, and the veteran nearly lost his life at the hands of somebody who was actually trying to make things better. And in another case, they had a malfunction in a vehicle and nearly wrecked. And so this bill just brings some certification, some standards to the VA, allowing them to be involved in having some standards of some folks with the idea that if they're going to be giving $12,000 to $13,000 of tax money to a veteran to help their quality of life, they want to make sure that somebody is certified in understanding how to adapt these vehicles. It's a really common sense thing, but it came up. It was just signed by the president a couple of weeks ago, but it came up because of situations right here in the district.
Okay.
Is some of what's going to happen in the VA getting everybody on board with, and I'm not quite sure how to phrase it, but I've been in situations before where I'll be told by one person, well, no, you're not eligible for that at all. And then 2 years later, here that I was, and they were just misinformed.
Well, I think one of the things you're going to see, I think that'll be a priority and something that I've been involved working on for the last 4 years, is this idea of veterans having choice. And I think you're going to see President-elect Trump come down heavily on the choice program, which will allow veterans. For example, my dad was a veteran, and my dad, died of cancer. Luckily, he had additional private insurance that allowed him to stay at home, hospice coming in. He wasn't relegated to have to drive 90 miles by himself, be isolated, have no family support when dealing with a terminal condition. So I think you're going to see a lot more access to choice, even right here. For veterans that live right here in this Rochester area, having the ability to go to a hospital closer to them. And I think you'll see a rapid progression of choice emerging where veterans can go where they want to go, get the care they want, but be close to home where their family could be with them.
You mentioned ISIS a bit earlier. Go ahead and dwell on that for a second, if you would, please. What are we going to do?
Well, obviously, we're just seeing its ugly head again over the weekend and
yes.
yesterday in Berlin. And, I think that the president was clear, and I think one of the reasons that, Trump won by the margin that he did is he hit on the same spot that I hear in this district every day, which is we want our nation safe and we want ISIS destroyed. Compared to some of the things that we've heard, I've said many times over the last 4 years, we've had a vacant commander-in-chief. We have not had the Obama administration engage in much of the vulnerabilities that we have found ourselves in, and we've grown more vulnerable because of the gaps and the vacuums that have existed around the world. And so I think Trump has made it abundantly clear that in bringing the picks that he's brought on that are defense hawks, but also very, very astute military commanders, that they're very, very serious about dealing with ISIS as the number one issue when they take office.
Is Washington, D.C. ready for a president who talks about Saudi Arabia more honestly than we've heard any president in a very long time talk about it?
I think Washington is ready and better have its reality glasses on, that the American people, there's something inside of every American. There's a gut inside of us. And when we come together and we agree on what was really nearly a political revolution in this country. That basically pushes the reality into Washington. That's where the American people take over. Common sense thinking dwells, and that's where things happen, the resets happen. So whether Washington is ready or not, this administration is coming with Republican House and Republican Senate, ready to do the work that we were just elected to do, which is a major reset.
Because that's what nobody's talked about for a very long time, and I've never heard anybody talk about it until Mr. Trump. The fact is, every time I fill my car up, I'm funding ISIS.
Absolutely, and I think I heard a fascinating interview a couple of days ago on some of the folks that are on his transition team talking about the way to cripple some of our enemies in the Mideast the quickest is to really concentrate on our domestic production of energy and oil and start cutting into the profits in those nation states that seek to bring us harm.
When we talk about the domestic economy, come back to the 2nd District. How do you find it when you go out and visit with folks?
Right now, and we're all over the district right now.
Right.
One of the things we're talking about is tax reform.
Okay.
And I'm getting into a lot of service clubs and trying to get into every county to let folks see what we're talking about with tax reform, because I want to hear from them and I want them to go to the website. I want them to talk about it. But I see a lot of optimism right now here, just as in D.C. A lot of my colleagues are feeling the same thing. People are optimistic. Consumer confidence is up. The stock market's up. People are seeing that their vote counted. They're seeing that the things that were really frustrating our fellow Americans are going to be reset. And they're going into this inauguration season with a lot of hope and optimism and putting a lot of responsibility on the shoulders of all of us that they just elected for us to do exactly what they told us to do. So, I can't wait for January 3rd to get there and to go right into session after we're sworn in. And I think that you'll find the same amount of enthusiasm. I mean, think about this. Folks ask me in D.C. all the time, so how's it going in your district? What do you think? And I tell them, I'm the happiest Hoosier in America. We want it all in this state. We just sent our governor to the vice presidency. Hoosiers have never had the kind of access to this White House that we do right now. There is nobody more involved in the transition team of who is going to surround our D.C. Surroundings there than Vice President-elect Mike Pence. And you're talking about a lot of common sense just moved into D.C. I couldn't be happier. I couldn't be more thrilled. And I think our fellow Hoosiers see that, and they sense it as well, and people are very upbeat.
I think now we hold the record, don't we, for the most vice presidents?
I don't know, but I'll tell you what, of all those other vice presidents, nobody from our state has been more hands-on into tangibly reshaping a government than Mike Pence.
Well, it's good to hear you say that, because I think so many times people in the Hoosier State and all over America think that Washington, D.C. is just this island that somehow exists out on the East Coast and has no relationship to what's happening in real life.
Absolutely. If you look at the list of the number of Hoosiers that have been looked at for a lot of different positions, and not just secretaries, but a lot of positions in Washington, and some of the folks that are going to be working in this Trump administration, I think it's beyond impressive. But, just having the ability, even as a member of Congress, to be able to interface with our governor, now vice president, it's never been like it is right now. I'm thrilled. I mean, for us in our state, I think we have so much to be proud of. And I think that, we have an expectation as well. And I don't think that our fellow Hoosiers are going to be disappointed.
Holiday plans?
None. I couldn't even tell you what day Christmas is. When I came in here, you guys start talking about Christmas, and am I ready? I'm asking what day is it and what day is Christmas. Holidays I seem to blow right past them, because we carry a really heavy schedule, very, very involved in the community. When I get to be home, and so it'll be what it is. But all I know is I'm making sweet and sour Polish style
there you go.
For Christmas dinner. I have to make a double batch because all of our family's coming in. They all want it. And it's the one thing I make really well.
You people do really good Christmas meals. I spent enough Christmases in South Bend, Indiana, and one massive wedding.
Yeah, I'm always talking to Brian in the car as we're driving around the district and stuff about different things. And we're always talking about food. Seems like we're always hungry. But I was just telling him today that my mom has lived with us since my dad died. My mom's lived with Dean and I for probably 7.5 years. And my mom is one of the most fantastic cooks ever. So my husband lives high on the hog. It's totally taken care of when I'm not there. And then Brian says to me, well, do you cook? And I said, I do cook really well. And Dean and I did survive, obviously 13 years before my mom came in for the last 7. But we are so blessed. I mean, we eat restaurant quality food because my mom is a phenomenal cook. ethnic. We have spices that fill up our kitchen, and this is a great time of year for us. But I can only profess to actually make the best sweet and sour on this side of Poland.
Thank you so much for all your visits during 2016. We really appreciate it, and we certainly look forward to visiting with you again as we go into the new year.
Well, it's so good to see you guys. It's so good that Barron almost halfway smiled here, if you can see it on the website. I know. So what an accomplishment that was this morning.
Merry Christmas
to you, Tom and Barron. Merry Christmas.
You too.
You too, Jackie.